I think these type of things obviously can present themselves rather in yourself, but then you involve another person who has their own traumas, and you're involving a situation like the pandemic where now you're inside with this person and maybe you haven't spent all your time like we have these days inside with this person and everything. So what are some of the traumas that you generally see people bringing into the relationship that are very destructive and kind of self-sabotaging for what they're trying to do?
There's so many patterns and combinations, but I'll give you some current ones. Most common ones and how they interplay together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have someone that's jealous or controlling, jealousy comes from trauma number 7, not feeling good enough, like you measure up.
Mm-hmm.
And usually number 2, hearing messages over and over that you're no good.
Mm-hmm.
Even slight messages like, why don't you change your outfit? You look fat in that. So you always have this perception of not looking or being good enough or pretty enough or handsome enough. So therefore that could lead to jealousy, even though your partner may be very good at, trying to reassure you. That jealousy can come up kind of quickly. Control comes from a couple of things. One, having a very chaotic childhood with a lot going on and never feeling control as a child. So you may want control as an adult, right? That might feel important to you. And this is where I have a lot of people successful in business, but struggle in love, because control in the workplace usually works fairly well. You say organized and focused and everything's in its place. But when you come home and overly are perfectionistic about your partner or your children and everything's got to be perfect, that can wreak a lot of havoc in your household. So perfectionism in self or wanting that in others, blaming behavior if you don't take responsibility and it's everybody else's fault. One that a lot of women tend to do is called people pleasing. And I've had men that do it too. If they had the critical parent, the way to keep peace in the household from that angry parent was just please them to death, overdo, can't do enough for them, always doing the chores or helping out with the siblings. And this might be a woman, for example, that comes in as a couple and say, Riana, I do everything for my husband and my kids. They do nothing for me. Nobody loves me like I love them. So they equate overdoing to getting and receiving love. Impulsivity could be someone that comes from a poor situation growing up, always craving the sports car or the big home. And they're usually very often spend beyond their means. Mm-hmm. Or they might do those impulsive purchases, even though they know they have debt and they shouldn't put it on their credit card. But it's that feeling of, I deserve it now. I couldn't have that as a kid. I'll pay for it. I'm figuring they would. And then they dig themselves into credit issues. Lying and manipulation. This could be like a little boy that had a very strict or an alcoholic, angry father. Every day he'd come home from school, if he didn't say the right thing, he would have gotten beaten that day. So he learned to be an expert liar or manipulator so that, this was his way of coping and surviving as a child. Sometimes, people become very smart because they don't get the accolades at home, but they become the teacher's pet. And they learn that, wow, if I'm smart in school, a couple of things could happen. The teachers like me and they give me compliments, or I'm smart and I'll win a scholarship and get the hell out of this house,
Yeah.
And to start my own life. So that's, again, where people become successful due to coping mechanisms as a child. But then that love piece was never healed or solved.
Yeah. And so when you see these type of things present themselves in relationships, do you, generally speaking, advise that people work on that as a couple, or is that something that somebody kind of has to solve within themselves to bring a better version of themselves to the relationship?
Well, I work with both singles and couples. So if a single's coming to me and they recognize they have unhealed childhood trauma, usually what they find themselves, they're in RRS, relationship repetition syndrome. So that's a toxic relationship after another one, or a horrible toxic marriage, and then one or two partners, and that was bad too. And they can't figure out what they're doing wrong. That's the single that I often get. And they want to heal whatever's going on within them, and they want the dating skills to attract someone who is emotionally healthy and evolved. Then I have the couple coming to me, And sometimes the one partner shows up and the other one doesn't want to be involved with coaching.
Mhm.
So I say, if one of you wants to be in here, you start. And one of two things will happen. You're going to get so strong and confident, so feel so amazing about yourself and about life, you're going to move on without them.
Mhm.
Or two, they're going to sense that you're about to move on. They're going to get scared and say, whoa, this is working. I better get in there too. And I've had that happen. Ideally, if I'm working with a couple, I have both people, and I have to do the trauma breakdown for partner A, partner B, and then third, the relationship. So, how are they emotionally triggering each other? How's it showing up in the relationship? They have to each understand each other's traumas. And then I also do measure the severity levels from 1 to 10. So, it's a new compassion, empathy type of feeling instead, and people owning when they're being triggered and saying straight out, I had a bad day at work. My boss yelled at me. It reminded me of my father. So I'm a little upset today. And please don't think it's you. It's
Mhm.
nothing about you. And then that partner doesn't take it so personally anymore. But until these traumas are understood, very often couples cycle in this love and toxic back and forth relationship.
And so when you see these issues begin to present themselves, would you say that one of the biggest factors, well, two really, that can help the relationship be successful is one, honesty with yourself, and then two, the willingness to work with it? Because what I've seen from just some of the people that I know is that if you only have one person who's trying to do the work, it's not going to go anywhere unless that person just kind of decides to fix the situation themselves by, like, as we pointed out some of the coping mechanisms before, by either lying, by just overdoing or whatever they need to do. But in long-term success, it has to, I imagine, and I'm asking for your expert opinion, I imagine there has to be honesty with yourself, and then also a commitment for both partners to actually put in some work to make these things better.
Well, yes. I mean, but by the time somebody hears this, they usually recognize their in the traumas, right? And how they're showing up.
Mhm.
So first of all, you can't change what you don't acknowledge or understand. So once you hear, oh my gosh, this is what's wrong. This is why I struggle with relationships. I want to fix it. And those are the clients I get. They're very excited to come in and heal this trauma from childhood so that they can have finally an emotionally healthy partner and also get the dating or the relationship skills that no one taught them. And unfortunately, most parents don't model it. Our
Mhm.
teachers aren't teaching this, healthy relationships. And I didn't even learn it in my triple masters. It all comes from my research, which went into my book, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. And that went to #1 bestseller on Amazon. So it is, it's a deep dive into the relationship healing. So as a single, it makes you more confident about the whole dating process. You feel like you're the whole package when you work with me. And it's 50%. So at first we do the life coaching. And the first part of that is healing the childhood trauma.
Mhm.
And then what are your goals and dreams and what are those? And let's get those started so that you're starting to feel amazing about your life. You have nothing to clean up, you have no baggage. Then we get you out to date. Because when you have no baggage and you're emotionally healthy, you're certainly not going to settle for someone else who is. So that's for the singles. And for the couples, I have made really great strides in only helping one partner. The whole relationship dynamic has changed. But that one partner usually still ends up stronger and more confident and has all the skills and the techniques that I've been teaching them over time, where the other partners just learned a little if they're coming in towards the end.
Mhm.
And, I mean, sometimes they make it, and sometimes the person I worked with moves on. But it really depends how toxic the other partner is.
Thanks for checking out Starting Nowhere. Come find us on Facebook so you can comment on this and other clips and episodes of Starting Nowhere.